Oh my God, y'all. Summertime is hitting hard. Um, let's talk about being a fucking cheapskate tonight. I'm cheap. Being cheap is alright. There's nothing wrong with being cheap. But I've always thought that there was a requisite amount of willingness to invest some of your time and energy into being cheap, right? So, there was a specific encounter I had today with someone who was having trouble because they bought a cheap bike, like a really old cheap bike. And then because it was old and cheap, it had a lot of problems. And then they were cheaping out on the repair as well. And, I did a couple things for them and was just like, okay, good luck, It's at least safe to ride. You could ride this bike now. It's not good, but it's safe. But he was really put out by it. He was like super duper put out by the idea that things cost money. And he had a nice phone. He had nice clothes on. I mean, maybe it's the mentality that we have in the United States that, he wasn't from the U.S., by the way, so maybe my whole theory goes out the window. But more often than not, you'll see these people who, it's almost like our bike culture in the United States, they are still viewed as toys, not valid transportation. Like I got nuts all over my chest. Probably in my teeth also. All I eat is nuts. Yummy. My thing about being cheap is that, number one, it's a bad look. It's a fucking shitty look to wear around all the time. See these people be cheap in front of their families, and it's like, man, you're the dad here, right? It doesn't have to be a dad, but in the instance I'm thinking of, it was like this dad. And he's being cheap as fuck in front of his children, and it's like, wow. Like, I mean, either blow it out like the Monopoly Man, or teach your kids that you can be cheap if you're creative. So, my stance is this. Be cheap. Be as cheap as you want to be. But part of that cheapness is that no one's going to fucking come save you and do it all for you. Don't be a helpless little diaper baby. I'm cheap as hell. Like, I'm cheap when it comes to my motorcycles. I'm cheap when it comes to my bikes. I'm cheap when it comes to everything. But I do the footwork, Like, if I want to buy a nice piece of clothing and I'm willing to wait, I'll actually, like, visit different, secondhand shops until it shows up. If I want to fix something and I don't want to pay a motherfucker to fix it for me, well, guess what? Google is your friend. I'll just Google how to do it, and sometimes I'll come up with cool ways to do it that's even cheaper than the cheap information I find on the internet. So, throw your money around. You only live once. And, if you're throwing your money at too many different things, invest some of your time. And also, be willing to consider that if you're not willing to invest time, and you're not willing to invest energy, and you're not willing to invest money, then maybe what you're trying to do isn't fucking for you. Good night.